Hello, my Teaserking family. How's everybody today? I hope everybody's good. We had a great weekend, so I hope that. Hit a 5-teamer with one of my customers, so that made her happy. I just missed a 7-teamer. I hit 6-1 in college. College was unbelievable. Let's go through that and get the exact score. One loser, Washington State over or under. And after watching the highlights of that game, I don't think they're an under anymore. I think they have a good defense, but they've got this quarterback who's getting better. And they look pretty wide open. They look like, they can move. Their defense is still good. So I don't think I'll be playing them under anymore. Although a game should have stayed under. It was a free touchdown and a pick six and another. So take 21 away from 85, and it gets you to 64. The over-under, I think, was 57, was 63.5. So I had it about right. It was just at the end, there was with a minute left, a touchdown, a pick six, and another touchdown. So definitely it was under or should have stayed under, but Washington State's got a great defense, but they look like they have a decent offense. So let's go through the games. Let's review what we learned. We ask ourselves why, and off we go. So West Virginia kills VTech 33-10. West Virginia is more of an over team. VTech's an under. I'm not going to go through all the teams, but Virginia Tech's a weak team, so usually an over team will beat another team. You just look for a good line. Here it was only 2. I had West Virginia 10. They're laying 2, and it was an easy win. Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, 2 overs. Game goes over, although McCall gets hurt in the game. Even their third-string quarterback looked good from that standpoint. So let me try to get that there. He looked good. So Coastal Carolina is good. They're a high-scoring team, and Georgia Tech's over. So, again, that's why we look at the team. 2 overs generally go over. Not every time, but they did. Syracuse, Virginia, 22-20. No real play on it. Syracuse, they're a good team, but they're laying 10. See, that's where it's a little bit much. And they win 22-20. No play. Air Force we like. That's the first play. They lay in 24. They win by 28. Tease them down to 18. 48-20. Air Force, as we set off the loss to Wyoming against the kind of weak Nevada team. So they handle them 48-20 pretty easily. UTEP, Boise, I don't know what happened to Boise. UTEP's not very good, and Boise just sucks. They only got 10 points on UTEP. So what's wrong with Boise? So you don't play Boise for a while. We either go against them or we see what the hell's wrong with them. I think their quarterback's bad. I don't know if they changed coaches, and that's the biggest problem I have is the changing coaches. It's killing Miami of Florida, and I've had to stop playing the Van Dyke card over. But it's okay. I caught it, so I didn't lose a lot of money playing them over. But again, you look at the box score and you go, what's wrong with this team? Bad coaching usually. Clemson, Wake Forest, Hartman looked great. 51-45 and 2 overtimes. Godley's looking a little bit better. We got to give him credit. Wake, Hartman, unbelievable. Should be one of the top 2 quarterbacks taken with Rising. Van Dyke, I think, still good. I think he's getting into a bad coaching situation. And we have other good McCall and a lot of good quarterbacks. But Wake held with them. So now I've got to ask yourself, is Clemson's defense where I thought it was, right? There were 6 All-Americans. I'm figuring they're going to be like Georgia, and they don't look like they're like a Georgia. Hartman eat them out. Now, maybe a good passing quarterback with a quick release he was killing them. They're in his face. He was just hitting touchdowns all day. So Wake's very live now. And Clemson, I don't know if they're as strong defensively as I thought. And Ucla is looking better. Still makes a lot of stupid throws. So it's a real Clemson's okay. They're not an under as I thought, so I got to get off of them as an under. And Wake can handle anybody now, so that's good. Baylor, Iowa State. Baylor was the second play. Baylor getting points from anybody is a bet, getting 8.5. They're up 31-17, and they win 31-24. So they're winning, no sweat. I was going to lock it. I don't know why I didn't. I think I had so many locks. It was like, but that's, I have locks circled, but I didn't lock them, but I did play them strong. But Baylor 9, so that's a winner. Kansas, that was the free play, 35-27. It was 35-20 with 2 minutes left. They scored. That was a lock. So I'm giving you a free pick, but you don't know it's a lock. That's my point. So I'll give you all these opinions on these games. You just don't know what I'm picking, what I'm locking, how much to bet on them. But anyway, Kansas looked sharp. Duke showed, a little bit of offense, a little bit of punch. Kansas doesn't have the great defense. They're an over team. And even here, over under 63, they got the 62. So you could have played it over, but I didn't trust Duke enough. Why the spread went down to 7, I have no idea. But Kansas, again, that's the beauty of the teaser, -1. They just got to win. So that's the second winner. Michigan, Maryland. Michigan does not look good at all. This is the problem. They played 3 bad teams, so you don't know who you have. Now, Maryland was not a good team, and Michigan sucked. Their defense has big holes. McCarthy, quarterback, is not good. They basically want to run the ball, which is what they did last year. So this is why this whole quarterback controversy makes no sense. It's just either if they can't run, they're not going to win. So they ran. The guy ran for 230 yards. So that was good. But the defense did not show up against a kind of weak Maryland. I don't know. Tagliabue always chokes in these games, just like his brother. So in my mind, Michigan's got trouble. They're going to be in trouble against Penn State. They'll be in trouble against Ohio State. They're going to be in trouble with Iowa. They're going to be lucky to score with that Iowa defense, and they'll make Iowa's offense look good, which should be an under game coming up. Central Penn State, 33-14. Penn State did what they should. Central, they're an explosive team, but when they play the big boys, now they showed up against Oak State, but not against, it was 14-all and then 33-14. Buffalo kills Eastern, 50-31. Both teams have weak defenses, and what happened, it goes over. So that's why we do the defensive look analysis. So far, the weak defense, UTEP was okay. BYU didn't do anything. The weak defense in Wake, Clemson scored, but Wake also. The weak defense, Central Michigan, Penn State blew them out. The weak defense, Buffalo and Eastern, both were weak, and it was an 80-point game with an over-under of 60. So EMU so you got all these EMUs, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Central Michigan. Eastern Michigan is high scoring. Central Michigan's high scoring. Kent's high scoring. Most of the MAC is high scoring and weak defense. They're all over teams, just about. Then we get to Kent State, Georgia. Kent State is an over team, but Georgia, I'm thinking this game's 50-0, and it's 39-22, which I have got to watch this game to see how Kent got 22. Even the 39 by Georgia. Now Kent they have played Washington 45-20, and then they played Oklahoma 33-30. Now we see Oklahoma might not be all that, losing to a weak Kansas State team. But again, it was 62-63, so we go under 68 or 69 with Georgia. It was a lock. That was lock number 2. 39-22 is a 61, so it stays under. Even though it was fairly much, again, I'm expecting Georgia probably at least upper 40s, low 50s, and Kent nothing. So I get my 61, but it's not the way I thought. And I got to see Kent's 22. Maybe it was a turnover or two. I saw one was a bubble screen, and the defensive guy ran the wrong way, and the receiver took the bubble screen and ran 60 yards for a touchdown, which is a total fluke. And again, it'll happen in a Kent State game. It's not going to happen in a Kentucky game or a Florida game. So again, there's lock number 2. Lock number 1, Kansas. Lock number 2, Georgia. Big pick, Baylor. We're 3-0. On our way, Auburn 17-14 to Missouri. I think it was overtime. Neither team's got an offense. Auburn's quarterback's just pathetic. Auburn's an under team, and there you have it. Just not much going on. Mississippi State, Bowling Green. Exactly, Bowling Green with the weak defense. Mississippi State, Mike Leach, 45-14. They win by 31, laying 31. Again, this is why you bet the teaser. Over under a 52. It goes over at 59. Bowling Green got you 14 points. So the whole point when these teams play is, you're going to get your 40 from Mississippi State. The question is the Bowling Greens, is the Ball States, are they going to score for you? If they are, you can go over because they're not going to defend them. If they're not going to score, then you take that. Then you just take Mississippi State late at 31. And both these teams are over teams. So you could have guessed it over, but again, it's hard out of conference. TCU, SMU, I had this game over 76. The over-under was 70, so they get over. Again, they're both pretty much strong offensive teams. I got TCU as an A, but again, they played the Division II team, so it's a little bit skewed. This is probably more like the TCU you're going to see give up 34 points. SMU, we know, has a good offense and no defense. So that's pretty much what you got is really 2 over teams, and the over was 70, and they get to 76. And it was competitive. It was an 8-point game. The spread was only 2, so you take SMU and 8, and you push. Cincinnati, strong defense. Bennett, their quarterback from Eastern, is looking good. They get a 69 in the game, so that was a surprise. But they're playing Indy, a Big Ten team. So Indy puts up 24. Cincinnati getting 45, not really a surprise. A little surprise Indy scored as much. But again, now they're playing a Big Ten team, not a MAC team, so it's pretty even. The Big Ten team's going to score on you, unless it's Iowa, of course, or Rutgers. Louisville kills South Florida, not a surprise. South Florida over team, terrible defense. Louisville puts up 41. This is why we look for the bad defenses, because you're not going to get the upset with the bad defense very, very often. 1 in 100, but you're going to get the over if you have a decent offense on the other side, because the defense can't stop it, which is basically what happens. UCF over Georgia Tech, 27-10. I liked UCF here. Lane 20 down to 14. They win 27-10. So they cover. Georgia Tech's a Z team with a over defense, weak offense, and they're just a very bad team. Over under a 56. Here's where you can't go over because you're not going to get points from Georgia Tech. And UCF, I was surprised only got 27, but they do cover the 20 and a teaser 14. Temple, UMass. Temple's an under. UMass is a Z. They're only laying 10, and so they win 28-0. So even a Temple can beat UMass by more than 10. So these Z teams, if you're only laying 10, it's, pretty much play them. Temple, they get 28. It's a big number for Temple. They don't score a lot. They're very weak. So 2 weak offenses, and yes, you get an under, which is, 28. The over-under was 43. UCLA, Colorado, another pick. UCLA, 21, took them down to 15, wins 45-17. Colorado's a Z team. UCLA is going to score. UCLA has to win in the conference because you got USC, Utah, Oregon State apparently, and Oregon, and apparently Washington and Washington State. It's freaking loaded. This is by far the best conference in a long time, head to tails. You only have one weak spot is Colorado and maybe Stanford in the whole freaking conference. It's unbelievable how strong this is. So what happens for your playoff, these teams get screwed because, let's say Utah beats USC, UCLA beats Utah. So the teams get a loss. Utah lost to Florida. And so, you can't be in the playoffs. You didn't go undefeated. But look at the schedule they got versus Alabama playing in high school teams. The only team they really got to worry about is going to be Arkansas and LSU, and then the SEC championship game against Georgia, because somehow they avoid Georgia and Florida on the cross, or Kentucky. They get Tennessee, which will be a game this year. And then they get Vanderbilt, and they always get the weak side of the bracket. And then the only tough team, Auburn stinks this year. Mississippi State's okay. And then LSU looks like they're getting better, as I thought they would with Brian Kelly. So Alabama, nowhere near the schedule that the whole Pac-10's playing. I mean, it's just awesome. So UCLA in a must-win, wins by 28, laying 21 down to 15. Colorado does get 17, but here you want to bet UCLA versus the over, the 45-17, because UCLA is going to score on the weak defense, Colorado with the over defense. So UCLA is going to score, but you don't think Colorado can score, so you can't go over, although the over worked because it was 58 or 57. But you're much better only laying 21 to a Z team with the powerhouse like UCLA, and they win, so they win 45-17. And that's about exactly what you're thinking against the Z team with the power team. Notre Dame, North Carolina. Okay, they switched quarterbacks because quarterback got hurt. They go to Pike, who quarterback last year as a freshman, and they find 45 points, and they beat North Carolina 45-32. How the hell did that happen? So 55, I don't even circle over under because North Carolina is an over team. Notre Dame apparently has no offense, found one. But the problem is why I can't go under is because North Carolina's got an over defense. Their defense gives up 35 points, but they're going to score 30. So it's very hard to bet under on that team. The question is Notre Dame. They found 45. Now let's see how much of it was turnovers and how much of it was, Notre Dame driving down the field 5 times. That's the thing, the hidden part of the game, the block punt, the punt return, the pick six, all of a sudden you get points, but it's not by the offense. So it skews the offense. Notre Dame gets 45 points, maybe only got 21 from their offense. Maybe they blocked the punt and they got, some sack fumbles and pick sixes that puts points up. But North Carolina got their 32, which you would expect. So North Carolina is going to be good. We can't wait for the Wake Forest game. I don't know about the Miami game anymore, but we can't wait for the Wake Forest, North Carolina. That'll be over 100 points. If the over-under is in the 70s at all, and I'm going to say Sunday night, we're going to hope for a 72, 73. We're locking it right there. Then it'll go up to 80, and then it's out of reach. So that's these over-unders come out Sunday and then kind of get switched Monday, and then off they go. So North Carolina over team goes over. Miami losing to Middle Tennessee. This coach should be fired. He's a new coach, Cristobal. I don't see. Van Dyke was having a terrible day. They pulled him in the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, I see this new quarterback. I'm checking, did he get injured? I see he got sacked, and then the next thing I know, the other quarterback's out. He threw 3 interceptions. I don't blame Van Dyke. I blame the quarterback. I blame the coach. I blame that he switched the plays and the offense away from what Van Dyke liked to this bullshit where he wants to run the ball more. And, you've got to be smart. You've got Van Dyke, man. You're going to throw the ball. You can't, okay, we're going to be a running offense. What are you, insane? You can't do that. And then you get down 24. Okay, Van Dyke, now throw. And he's getting sacked because they're playing him for the pass. You've got to use Van Dyke. This coach should be fired. Obviously, he took a very explosive team and made them shit. It's very disappointing. But as a handicapper, I have to make that adjustment and understand what's going on. And what I understand is the coach sucks. I thought about that when they got him. But the difference is Utah did not change coaches. UCLA did not change coaches. So they're both still powerhouses. The powerhouse offense that went from Oklahoma to USC still there. And how the fuck did Oregon State hold them to 17? It's just Oregon State must have the Steeler defense of the 70s because that was unbelievable. I'm saying the score 7-3 in the third quarter. What the fuck's going on there? So, hey, G, everything's fine. Well, I'll answer your question in the middle of college. I started watching the highlights, and what happens? The first punt of the game, the guy fumbles the punt inside his 5-yard line, and then the guy is still out there. So now they do. No, that's okay, G. I want your input. The second punt, he mishandles that one, and you're like, okay, is this the only guy that we have on punts? And why do we have a guy on punts who can't handle a punt, who didn't look good, looked shaky? What are you doing with this guy out there? And then why would you put him out there a second time? Well, we don't want to hurt his confidence. Well, the guy fumbles every freaking time there's a punt. What are you doing in practice, man? In practice, does he fumble the punts too, or what? Only in the games when it counts? So you could see they got in a hole. The kicker missed the first extra point. He missed 2 field goals. Casey should have won, but the kicker, again, their kicker got hurt. The good kicker hurt his ankle, and so they go with this Amendola guy. And look, you got 130 colleges. You got kickers on every freaking college that most of them are pretty good. You're telling me you can't get a free agent kicker better than the guy you got? Are you kidding me? So this kicker misses the extra point and 2 field goals, and they lose by 3 in a game that they gave away the first touchdown on a bad punt. So they're just like shooting themselves in the foot. What the hell are they doing against Indy? So no, they shouldn't have. Casey should have won the game, but what can I say? But Cincinnati and Tennessee, dead spot, backs against the wall. And that's what we look for. We don't get pissed at Cincinnati for costing us against Pittsburgh. We then wait for it. And then now we see Cincinnati back against the wall after 2 losses, must win, and they kill the Jets. That's what we look for more in the pro. Well, in anything, the team that must win will, if they're good and they must win, will win. Look at Alabama, Georgia in the championship game, the SEC championship. Alabama had to win or they'd be out of the playoff, and they get the win. And Georgia didn't need it. But in the championship game, when they both needed it, Georgia got the win because they needed it. So you're always looking for that team who is who's a good team who off of a loss. Like Tampa Bay will be very live when I think they play Kansas City next week. You got 2 teams pissed off of a loss. This will be very interesting. I got to see what the spread is there. But anyway, that's pro football. There is no Georgia, there's no Alabama, Ohio State. There's nothing like that there. And it's really like you're just scratching your head going, this sucks. And what I don't like is all the scams, all the betting on how many yards a guy's going to get, how many catches a guy's going to get. What the fuck is that? I mean, these people are losing their ass betting these stupid bets and the money line bets. If I hear one more guy betting a money line bet on my site, I'm going to kill him. Stop betting the money line. What's the point of the money line? We tease KC down to even. What do we need a money line? And we don't have to lay all the money. Like, I don't know, they're probably $1.50 money line even. We had them in the teaser at $1.10 even. And we can find, how many games did I find? I have 3 locks yesterday. We won 2 of them. The other locks tonight. So it's not that difficult to find games to play with them. And I gave you Cincinnati and Tennessee. So it's not hard to find a second teaser or 3 or 4 teasers. Why would you go to money line? What is wrong with, where are they getting this from? It just blows my mind. I've never bet a money line game in my life. I never, ever, the thought never entered my mind. The only time it's money line's baseball because that's the way you bet it is money line. So yeah, I don't like that. All right, G, we'll get back to it in a minute. I'm just going through college. So Miami, I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know what's wrong. I think they're changing the offense on Van Dyke, and he's probably confused. His receiver's out. So we got to put Miami on the back burner until they get healthy. Minnesota, Michigan State. Minnesota is such a good team. They are so much better than normal. They are an A team. I was looking at their stats last night, and I'll go through the stats after I go through the games. They're freaking, what a defense they have. This is a serious team. Tanner Morgan, a good quarterback. Ibrahim, the running back, they got balance, they got defense. Look out for this team. I think they'll win that side of the bracket and play Ohio State. Wow. I mean, because what's been holding off these other teams, except for Iowa and Wisconsin have the defense but don't have the offense. And that's why they never can get over the hump. Iowa always great defensive team and terrible offense. But this Minnesota team has them both, and they got balance and a good runner and a good quarterback. Look out. They are so under spread. Here, they're laying 3, and I kind of commented like, oh, I like Michigan State as a home dog, but after watching that game, no, that spread should have been 10. They are not spread right, and they are an A team. So they're going to be, how we tell you Alabama should lay 30, lays 35 or 36. Minnesota should be laying 10s, laying 3. So they're the anti-Alabama, and that's what we want. We want to find them, like Kansas, like Washington State, all those teams. Florida, Tennessee. Tennessee looks strong. Florida finally looked a little bit better, scoring a little bit late after Tennessee was up big. Again, going for 2 cost Florida the game because they're down like 17 or whatever, and they're going to be down. I don't remember exactly. They're going to be down 17. They go for 2 and they don't. No. They were. It was somehow they were going to get down 7. They go for 2. They don't get it. Now they're down 8. And then they score, and again, they've got to now go for 2 to tie it, or to get down 3, I think. And again, they missed the 2-point conversion. So for some reason, these coaches read the analytics and think that the 2-point conversion's just a regular, normal play that they'll make 95% of the time. Instead, they don't realize when you look at the odds on getting it, they're probably about 5%, especially when the game's on the line. The odds are probably 1%. You're not going to make it normally. So where they're getting these odds that it's a 50-50 proposition, they're out of their freaking minds. That's why you don't use numbers. You've got to use the brain, and you got to look at emotions and all that stuff. Texas, 7 over Texas Tech. I was mulling this bet. I was going to play Texas. I was going to play them, and I said, no, that's not. Sure as shit, Texas Tech beats them in overtime, 37-34. I think I laid off because Texas's quarterback was injured with the collarbone and the backup's in. And I kind of don't want to get more information. Here you go in the Big 12. Texas Tech beats them. Still no defense, but they get enough offense. And they beat them 37-34 in overtime. Texas, now I'm really confused. They lose to Alabama 20-19. Alabama gets 19 points on them, and Texas Tech gets 37. Can somebody explain what the hell is going on here? Because Alabama, that's what I figured, would score 40, and Texas would get 10. That's what I figured when Alabama played Texas. So how does Alabama only get 20 points and a field goal with 1 second left to get to the 20? And here Texas Tech gets 37. Go figure that. But so that's what you learn. Texas is not as strong as they looked against Alabama. It was more of a fluke or whatever. And Texas Tech is a good team, pretty good offense, no defense. This is what they've been the last 20 years, a good offensive team and no defense. So again, we didn't play that one. Toledo, I warned you about Toledo being a road favorite going on the West Coast. Lane 3, much better team. They're now an over team. They used to be an A team, but I think part of that's because they played Ohio State, and Ohio State put up 77 on them. So that's going to make you a bad defensive team, but this is more like it, 17-14. But San Diego State gets the win. A very weak offense in San Diego State. But it's hard to bet under with Toledo with that weak defense. So it's a game you watch. It's a game you just feel, wait, Toledo's got to go on the West Coast as a road favorite against San Diego State, who's not terrible. So it just smelled, and that's the problem with the road favorites. Now, Minnesota handled it, but Texas couldn't, and Toledo couldn't, and that's why you got to be very careful with road favorites. North Texas, Memphis, 2 overs, playing over, 44-34. It goes 70. It goes 78, over under a 70. So that's what you're looking. Memphis, always scores, and North Texas, who you know nothing about, is an over team, which is why we do our stats, and doing the stats got us to an over team. James Madison, App State. James Madison looks for real to me. I mean, they're Division II, but they've always like a really good Division II. They go up to Division I in the Sun Belt, and they beat App State. A&M couldn't beat App State, 32-28. They have a very good offense, James Madison. We'll find out more about them, but, Lane, they're getting 7. So I didn't play it again. I got to see them because they've never been Division I before. But that's about what I thought, is they're a very good team. Western Kentucky, Florida International. Florida International is just horrible. Z team, over defense. Western Kentucky can light it up. That's what they do. 73-0. They get the over all by themselves, which was 65. And again, I didn't think Florida International would help me, so I can't bet the game over. I don't know Western Kentucky's going to go over by themselves. But Western Kentucky always with the strong offense. The line was 31, probably should have been 38-40. If it was Alabama, it would have been 40. But that's my point. Oregon, Washington State. This is my only loser of Saturday. I have Washington State under because the over-under is 57. I go 63. Man, how are they going to do that? They played Wisconsin. They beat them 17-14. Not that Wisconsin's good, but I'm watching them as an under team. They got a great defense and not a great offense. Again, this was all done the last 3 minutes of the game. They scored 21 points to bury me. But up until going into the fourth quarter, it's 29-17. It's a 46, and I'm in the 60s. So I'm feeling pretty good. Now, what did I learn? Oregon, Bo Nix, okay, they seem to be able to score. They did throw a pick 6 with the minute left, Washington State. So really it's 37 Oregon. Washington State puts up 41 on is it a good Oregon defense? I don't know. Oregon's definitely an over team with an over defense. And in the Pac-10, you're going to have all these 80-point games. So Washington State is no longer an under team. That much I got is they have a quarterback and a fairly good offense, but we know they got a really good defense. So we have to adjust Washington State from an under with the 17-14 Wisconsin game. I don't know that they're an over. Let's call them a B team because they got a really good defense. So they're not really an over team. Over teams have bad defenses. And from what I can tell, Oregon's being skewed by giving up 49 to Georgia. So is Oregon an over? But when you get to a 44-41 game with Washington State, they're an over. Now, I did warn against taking Oregon after the BYU win, and they were flat. And Washington State had this game won like 29-15. Some missed coverages cost them, but I definitely Washington State and the 13 was a good play. They played well right with them, and definitely was a good. They were alive, so I took them under instead of taking Washington State. That's my only loser. Ole Miss, Tulsa. Ole Miss laying 21. Tulsa over team, good offense. Kind of a weak defense. Surprised Mississippi only got 35. Over under was 65. They get to 62. So they do go over what you would have thought with Mississippi. They got Dart, the quarterback from USC. Tulsa can score. They got a really good quarterback in Bryn. So that's about what you thought. Tulsa was able to score on Ole Miss. Arizona, Cal, I have Cal as an under, and now they put up a 49 on me. I like Arizona's quarterback that they're going to score, but their defense doesn't show up. So I don't play it. I watch it, and Cal 49-31. Over under 50. Obviously, that was way off. I love how everybody says, oh, Vegas hits the number all the time. Yeah, okay. An 80-point game, they had 50. Yeah, tell me how Vegas hits the number. Cal -3. Cal is now Arizona has a weak defense, obviously, and a good offense. And Cal, where they got the offense from, I don't know. And even they let up 31. They supposedly have a good defense, but then they gave Notre Dame 24. Now they give 31 to Arizona. Don't have the defense I thought they had against the good teams. And this is what happens in the beginning when they play those weaker teams. Oh, they're a defensive team. Then they get in conference and they start playing better caliber, and all of a sudden they're not unders anymore. They're now A, Bs, or overs. And that's what you have to start adjusting. That's why you're kind of like, well, I don't know what to do with Arizona Cal yet. I'll leave it alone and watch, and I'll play it against other teams later. And that's what you do. Rice and Houston. I thought Houston was laying 17. I figured they would do better. I don't play it. Again, over under. Now, this is the strange one, right? Houston was 57, goes to 51. This is an over game. Both teams are over with weak defense. It's a 34-27. It's a 61. Over-under went down from 57 to 51. Again, it goes down 6 points like last week, and I'm going to keep my eye on it this week. Something fishy is going on with Houston and these over-unders. Both weeks they went down 6 points, and both weeks the game goes over. So we'll keep an eye on that one. We might just be locking Houston over, getting the additional 6 points every week. Rice shows a pretty good offense to get 37. And Houston's just an over team. I mean, look at Kansas put up 45 on them. Now Rice puts up 27. Now Rice is not the Z team that they normally are. They're turning into an over team. So keep that in mind when they play these other over teams. This is why we rank them. So we got to know, are they over or under? And this is why we adjusted. So I went in last night and I pulled in the new stats and I adjusted. They're not an under team anymore. They're an over. Or now they're a Z team. Or now they're a B team. So that's why you do it, because you have to adjust. And I'm looking at who they played and everything. Navy beats East Carolina in 2 overtimes is absolutely stunning. When East Car, who's a very good team, and Navy lost to Delaware at Division II, they don't score anything. Again, 2 overtimes, and they get to 23-20. So Navy's defense apparently getting better. East Car, they probably just can't stop the run. So probably what happened in the game, Navy just time of possession them to death. East Car couldn't stop it. So East Car didn't get the possessions. That's what you are looking for in these Army Navies, is the long sustained drive or unders, because the other team only gets the ball 4 or 5 times. And they just wear you down running that option, and that's looks like what happened here. So the only time Navy gets hurt is if they get way down, right? If they get down 21-0, they don't want to run the clock. I mean, then it's a 10-play drive and they run the clock. They're killing themselves. So, but if they can get the lead and then run it down your throat, now you're in trouble. Georgia Southern ball. Georgia Southern lock number 2. No, lock number 3. Lock number 1, Kansas. They win. Lock number 2, Georgia under. That wins. Lock number 3, Georgia freaking Southern. Who locks Georgia Southern but the Teaserking? And they win. So not only do I lock it, but they win the lock. Lane, they went from 10 to 9.5 or 9, somewhere in that neighborhood. They win 34-23. So we're lane 3. We're fine. They were up 4, a couple minutes left. They get a touchdown, just chewing the clock up, and they win by 11. Ball was not a Z team as I thought. They were more of a W. Weak defense. And again, what do you think? You think Georgia Southern 48 on Nebraska. So you think, oh, and they look great offensively. So you're thinking, this is what's going to happen. And they did put 34 on the board. Apparently they're an over team, so they don't have a great defense. So you got to bet them more over than you can bet them on the team, unless, which I thought that I had a Z team in Ball State, who is a little bit better. I mean, they were able to score 23, but Georgia Southern got the 34, and we got the lock. So over under was 67, didn't come close. It was 57, but that's what you're looking at. So we got away with Georgia Southern laying the 9. Again, Ball State was like, they get 21 a game and give up 34. So kind of a Z team, a W team. And that's what we got out of them as a W team, what we thought. But because they were close to a Z team, that's why I locked it. I says, well, they can't score, and we know Georgia Southern is going to score a ton. So I thought Georgia Southern would get in the 40s and Ball would be in the teens, but that's okay. We got the W. Akron Liberty, very strange. Liberty, I think, is on their 3rd-string quarterback. Akron, the Z team, scores the Big 12. Liberty gets 21 with the 3rd stringer. So, again, Akron being the Z team. The line on this was 26, but because Liberty's quarterbacks were hurt, you couldn't lay it. Arkansas State Old D -5, wins by 3. Arkansas State an over team, Old D an under team. And it kind of goes in the middle, 29-26. Over under was 56. So, did Old D get more than you thought? Well, no, 29 against an over weak defense is about right. And that's the trouble with the over playing the under. You don't know if the under is going to score enough. You think the over would keep pace. So you would have thought Arkansas State in 11 as the over team would score enough to keep the game close. And that's exactly what happened. Iowa Rutgers. Iowa scored 27, but got 2 pick sixes. So their offense scored a 1 touchdown. The offense scored 13. Rutgers gets 10 on that defense. Over under was 38.5. It was 34. How the hell do you play this game under 34? And as you see, they get to 37. It's always strange when they make the over under like that low, like 34. It always goes over. I don't know why. I am assuming it's a FanDuel Caesars type of fix where they make it low. Everybody's on the under because the under, I want to say started at 36, went down to 34. I think it ended at 33.5, but everybody's betting the under. And of course it goes to 37. I would have probably at 34 gone over 28 myself, but you get 2 pick sixes, which if you don't get, it's a 13-10 game and it isn't under. Iowa's got Michigan this week. I got to check this. So we've got a what's the score do you think it'll be? And Michigan will, let's say 20 to 6 Michigan. Iowa won't score, but I don't think Michigan gets much. I don't even know if they get to 20, but it'll be low scoring. But your over-under is going to be in the low 40s. Michigan, I thought had a good defense till I saw them Saturday. Now I'm going, no, they don't have a good defense. They have a good defense when they play Hawaii and Colorado State, but not when they play Maryland. And the backup came in and threw a touchdown. So Michigan's defense is in trouble. And McCarthy's in trouble. So it's just if they can run. But I don't know if you can run on Iowa. And if you can't run on Iowa, Michigan's going to lose. UNLV, Utah State. UNLV, I have a -7. The spread's -2. I'm all over them because Utah State's a Z team. And Vegas wins 34-24. So we won with Georgia Southern as a lock, UNLV, Kansas. The Georgia under is okay, and UCLA and Baylor, which that makes sense. How the fuck do we win with Kansas, Georgia Southern, and UNLV? And all three win, and all three win pretty easily. Vegas wins by 10, getting 3.5. Oh my God, you can't cross 0. Well, bullshit, I can't. I did, and it was close. So even if Utah State wins it by 3, we're covered. We got 3.5. But Vegas has been showing a lot of points. They got 34 here. Utah State's a Z team. They found 24 because, Vegas isn't, a great defensive team, but they are a good offensive team. So against the Z team, Utah State with the weak defense, I figured Vegas would be in the 30s or 40s, which is exactly what happened. And Utah State only got the 24. So Vegas gets the win, fairly easy. Unbelievable. And you're rolling when you're hitting Vegas and Kansas. And again, last year I never would have played either of these teams, but you watch and you learn and you see what's going on. That's why I'm successful with this, because I can immediately see what's going on. It's usually when a bad team starts scoring, and that's when you start betting them, because if you can score, you're going to cover. It's the teams that don't score that you bet against. So all of a sudden, Vegas is live. Kentucky, Northern Illinois. Lombardi did not play, the quarterback for Northern Illinois, and Kentucky only scored 31 in this game. Northern Illinois is a good MAC school. They usually are close for the championship. And 31-20. Kentucky, I'm surprised gave up 23 points, but I'm kind of surprised they only got 31. But it's close to what I would have expected. I would not lay 26. I had no desire to lay 26 against a good Northern Illinois team. So, that was just – now Kentucky's got a big game this week. So we'll see. Arkansas A&M, we got the win, but it was that was lock number 4. So we have Kansas with Georgia Southern locked, then Arkansas with somebody else was a lock, and then Georgia with we actually locked them with the 49ers, which I'll get to. So I must have had another lock. Maybe it was the Baylor lock, but that was lock number 4, is Arkansas getting 8.5 from a weak A&M team that doesn't have a big offense. Love Jefferson. They're up 14-7, and he jumps at the 2-yard line into a defender, fumbles the ball, and they take it back for a touchdown. You're like, okay, I should have at least got a field goal. If I get a touchdown, the game's over 21-7 because Art can't score. Why he runs into the middle of a guy and just jumps instead of making a move and running outside. I'll never know. It's such a weird play call. It's such a weird result. But they're down 23-14. Now we're getting 9 points, maybe 8.5, depending on who and where. So I was a little bit worried. And then I see 23-21. And we go to kick a field goal to win at 23-21. And the guy misses it. So Ark should have won 24-23. Should have won really probably, let's say 24-14 is what they should have been, because take that touchdown away, so that gives them 16. So we should have won like 28-16 very easily. Arkansas should have won the game. And then if it goes up 21-7, then they really kill them. So very disappointing, but they came back from 23-14 to 23-21 with a chance to win at the end on a 30-yard field goal. So again, just like Baylor, you get Arkansas as a dog. Now this week they're home dog to Alabama. Now they just played an emotional game with A&M at Jerry Dome. So this will be very interesting to see what the line is and what I do with it. I think they have a chance against Alabama, but I don't think their defense is strong enough. I think the only way to bet it could be an over, but we'll have to see the line. The lines will determine what we do. So we'll see. Southern Miss, Tulane. Southern Miss gave Miami a little scare a couple weeks ago. Tulane -10. Tulane's an A team. Southern Miss is an E team without much of a quarterback, good running back. Southern Miss wins. 13-point dog wins 27-24 outright. So that's the Southern Miss, the Tulanes. That's really, those are the teams you kind of, you don't bet a lot on them because you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know who shows up. Okay, let's move on. Marshall, Troy. Marshall's shocking, 16-7 to Troy, losing. Marshall should score. They're an A team. They beat Notre Dame. What the hell happened here? I don't know. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Probably turnovers. But Troy, who looked good against App State, now beats Marshall. So it's amazing how like a team like App State will beat A&M and then all of a sudden they stink. Should have lost to Troy and then lose to James Madison. You're like, they're a good team and they lost to North Carolina and now James Madison. And you beat A&M. So just you're waiting for the right time. South Alabama, 13 over LTAC. This was definitely an overplay. Over-under was 58, and they get to 52. It doesn't work. Didn't bet it. But I would have thought, see, here's the thing. South Alabama being an A team kind of makes it hard to play over with A teams. And then LTAC being an over team. So it's about the score you would have thought of. South Alabama 38, so they can score, but they held LTAC to 14, makes it a 52. Well, it's a push, 52, and they were at 58. So, but that's what you get. The good defense can stop the offense, which is what happened here. Because LTAC's pretty much an offensive team, or at least they're trying to be more of a spread team. I got to go, TK, so I'll rewatch tonight. Have a great day. Okay, take care, G. Have a nice day. Connecticut, NC State, Z team Connecticut, A team NC State, laying 39. They win by 31, 41-10. They don't score as much as you think they would have. NC State, this is why I didn't play the game. Even though they're playing a Z team and they're an A team, they're not a high scoring. They do have a good defense. I'm surprised Connecticut got 10. But NC State 41, and that's where the spread's too high, 39 points. It's just too high to play with a, decent offense in NC State, but not a Wake. If this is Wake Forest, I would have laid 39. South Carolina, Charlotte. Now I'd say South Carolina's an over team playing Charlotte, who's an over team. Reynolds plays. 56-20 is a 76. The over was 66. So you have two weak defenses, a good quarterback, and Reynolds for Charlotte. I'm not a big Rattler fan for South Carolina, but they scored. All of a sudden, it was close, then they blew them out. So, again, Charlotte, very good over team, good quarterback, and that's key, and then no defense. Vandy, Alabama laying 40 every week. They want to make sure nobody bets them, and then it's 55-3. They win by 52 and cover. Vandy, again, they showed up against Hawaii and put up a 60, which skews them because Vandy is a Z team, but when you put up a 60 on Hawaii, they're not a Z team anymore because now they're an over team. Even though they give up a lot, they score, and a Z team doesn't score. Well, against Alabama, they're back to being a Z team, 55-3. So we'll have to keep track of Vandy in the conference. So far, Wake Forest beat them like 38-28, and now Alabama 55-3. So Vandy's not a good defense, which we know. Question is, how good's their offense? LSU, New Mexico, LSU minus 31 wins 38-0. Again, that's about what you expect. New Mexico is a very good defensive team, a good under. And I did have under circled as to play. The over-under was 45.5. And that's about what I thought. New Mexico cannot score. They have a terrible offense. And LSU, you don't know what you're getting. So, 38-0. So that was a good win. Florida State over BC. I was worried about, Travis, the quarterback play he did, and BC's terrible, under team. They have a decent defense, not great, no offense, 44-14, laying 17. So Florida State looks strong, and BC's terrible. Oklahoma, Kansas State. What are you going to do with this game? Where in God's name did you think Kansas State could score 41 and beat Oklahoma? But we don't know Oklahoma yet, right? With Venables, we think they got a good defense. But what did I talk about? They played Nebraska the week before. They're going to be flat a little bit. It's Kansas State. Had it been Baylor, Oak State, they'd have been up. But because they're playing Kansas State, they go through the motions and they get beat. Kansas State ran Deuce Vaughn like 250 yards, the running back. Martinez had a decent game. The Nebraska quarterback on Kansas State. They got to, that's it. Oklahoma scores 34. It's just, how did Kansas State score 41? It's just they ran it down their throats. Oklahoma still can't stop a good running team, and there you go. 41-34 K-State. That's a matchup. They always beat them. They always run it down their throat. Little option. Oklahoma can't fix it. They still haven't fixed it. So, again, I stayed away from that. Again, it's partly because the big game with Nebraska and they got the win, and partly I don't know Oklahoma right now. New Mexico State, Hawaii, a battle of the Z teams, and New Mexico State kills them 45-26. Both Z's, both over, both weak offenses. And this is what, when Z teams – for some reason, when Z teams play, it normally goes over because I don't know why, but where they have no offense against everybody else, when they play the other team, all of a sudden New Mexico State scores 45. So, again, you can't bet Z teams, you bet against them. Lou Lafayette, Lou Monroe. Lou Lafayette laying 9. Lou Monroe, a Z team, wins 21-17. More of a rivalry game at Lou Monroe. Holding Lou Lafayette to 17 with a weak defense like Lou Monroe is something. And it's just Lou Lafayette's just not that good. Lou Monroe is still probably a Z team, but Lou Lafayette's not very good, and that's what we're finding out. USC, Oregon State. This was another pick. USC down to 6. I got to take them even. I remember the Stanford game. Then they blow out Fresno State. I'm going, okay. Oregon State, I love. I love the quarterback. I love the balance. Fenwick, the running back, good offense. Decent defense, but I didn't expect this defense. I mean, it was 7-3 in third quarter. USC had 3 points. This is the team that puts up 50. What the hell is going on? And it wasn't a lot of turnovers. Oregon State's defense was serious. I mean, they're as good as Washington State's defense in that conference. 17th, 14, they pull it out at the end, SC. I got it even. My point against the money line. Well, I played the money line. So I could have played the U.S. money line and sweated my ass off the whole game. Probably paying extra because it's USC. Probably paying $200 to win 100 to get it even. I already got it even with the teaser, so it wasn't hard to play USC with Kansas or with Baylor or somebody like that. I know I had them in 2 teasers. I think I had Baylor in 2 teasers also, and Kansas in 2 teasers. And then they come on and they score at the end and win with like a minute left, 17-14. What did we learn? Well, their offense can be – what Oregon State did was pressure. This is the key to stopping an offense. Put pressure on it. That's why – I'm afraid when I have a good offensive team of the good defense and why I look for weak defenses. I don't want to fuck around with strong defenses when I have a over team. Wake Forest, Clemson. I stayed away from it. I was afraid Clemson would do what they tried to do. They tried blitzing Hartman. You couldn't blitz him. It didn't. He beat the blitz. He was too quick. So that's what I'm saying. So USC here, they blitzed them. That's why they couldn't score. Finally, they got a few plays that worked. But Oregon State's going to be real live in this conference. Good offense. Chase Nolan, excellent quarterback. It's an excellent team. On the road, look at Oregon had trouble with Washington State. USC has trouble with Oregon State. You go on the road, and in the Pac-10 especially, it's not going to be a cakewalk unless it's Utah going to Arizona State, which we'll talk about in a minute. BYU off the loss against Wyoming, against Oregon is laying 22, and they win 38-24. They don't cover, but they do get the 38. And you're going, where was that last week against Oregon? We would have won. And again, now I didn't bet BYU because I thought the number was high. Well, Wyoming's not bad. They beat Air Force. But I figured, see, had been like 10, I would have been all over BYU. But because it was 22, they win by 14, but you can't play them. So, again, that's what happens there. San Jose State, 7 over Western. Again, I talked about San Jose State. Not that I love San Jose State, but you got Western Michigan, who is they're like the Z team now of the MAC. They don't score. They have a weak defense, and they're going on the West Coast. It's got at 10:30. I know if I had to go to the West Coast, go to Vegas, and I get in at 10:30, I'm exhausted. So it's just you're off your body clock and the flight. So San Jose did get the win easily, 34-6, but they're not a good team. But Western's just, that was more of a go to the West Coast and get your ass kicked. Utah, 14.5 to Arizona State. Coach fired. I took Utah, laying 8, 9. They go win 34-13 very comfortably. That's exactly what you look for. The coach is gone. So Utah is a very strong team. Can't afford. They lost to Florida. They need to run the table, and they're going to beat these Arizona States. That's one you could kind of get away with. Had they gone to either Oregon State or Washington State, I would never have played Utah minus 15. But again, I didn't have to there. USC was even at Oregon State. So it's just win. Washington laying 13.5 against Stanford, 40-22. Penix looks like I thought he was going to look last year when I kept betting him and losing. I bet him, I think, 2 times or 3 times, and I lost. I said, fuck this guy. He goes to Washington. I'm like, oh, no. He was terrible last year, and he's playing pretty well. So Washington looks very good with the coach from Fresno State and Penix. Stanford, looks fairly weak, gives up 40, and they scored 22, so they're, okay. I don't like McKee very well, the quarterback, but they're okay there. Hey, Nick, played Titans, Bengals, huge. There you go. Well, backs against the wall, you know what to do with them. It was one of those games where you can just feel that, well, I know you had bet the Bengals the week before against Dallas, and the key is just don't get. It's easy to get off of them, and that's what I was trying to explain. And the Titans, right? They had both lost. You're both. Oh, I don't want to bet them anymore. But that was it. Tennessee must win at home against the Raiders, and unless I saw John Madden on the sidelines, they weren't going to win. And then the Bengals, they're going to kill the Jets. That's exactly what they did. And good win for you, Nick. Well, that's what we want, the back against the wall. Even in week 2, week 3, I mean, you lose, look out this week. KC and Tampa both off of a loss. I'll really have to study this one. Stanford, Washington. We talked about that. So next one, Ohio State over Wisconsin. Loved Ohio State there, 52-21, win by 31, lane 19. So it was a big number. You're like, but Ohio State, they're scared. When teams like that get scared, and the way they looked against Notre Dame, you knew they were like, okay, we can't fuck around here. We got to do it. Wisconsin. It's amazing what Ohio State does to these really good defensive teams. They just eat them up. 52 points on a very good Wisconsin defense, which makes the Wisconsin defense look not very good. And Ohio State lights them up. And that's what you expect from Ohio State. They're going to, their only tough game will be at Penn State, but it looks like it'll be an over game. They'll kill Michigan. Michigan looks like crap, especially with McCarty. He's a terrible quarterback. Like I listen to the radio here, and they're all McCarty. Oh, he's a 5-star. Pull his hat. That's in high school. So if he goes and plays high school teams, yeah, he looked like a 5-star against Hawaii. But against Maryland, he looked like crap. So Ohio State looks good. Purdue lane 17.5 to Florida Atlantic, but the quarterback's out. The line was wrong because of the quarterback. They win 28-26. Now, I expected Florida Atlantic to do that against UCF, and I was surprised they got blown out at home by UCF. But Purdue, usually a good offensive team, so I'm really surprised by this score. I'm not surprised it was close, but I'm surprised it was 28-26. 54, over-under was 59. A teaser wins the over. Northwestern loses to Miami of Ohio. Now you really scratch your head. You don't know how good Northwestern is. They beat Nebraska. They lose to Duke. Now they lose to Miami of Ohio, and I think they lost to Bill and Mary or something. So Northwestern stinks. They have no this is a team that lost to Miami of Ohio when their quarterback's hurt. Gabbard's out. He's gone. Their first stringer, so their second stringer's in. They can only get 17. So that's it. So recap the week. We hit Baylor. We hit Kansas. We hit, that's the lock. We hit lock 2, Georgia under. We hit UCLA. We avoid the Texas. We lose the Washington State under, but we don't lock it. We hit Georgia Southern as a lock. We hit UNLV. We hit Arkansas as a lock. We hit USC. We hit Utah. Unbelievable. Just another great week. 4-0 on the locks. And then we get to the pros. We lock the Bears, Houston under. Gets a little bit hairy, but we win that one. And then the big lock was the Georgia under was with the San Francisco 49ers under. What an under that was, 11-10. So that was that was big lock of the week. Georgia, they made us sweat a little, but they didn't score in the second half. It was beautiful. And then the Niners never got close. They were 50, and it was 11-10. I find it very hard to watch the game when I locked it under because I don't want to see the points. I don't have the team bet. So I was watching like a Netflix or something, or a lot of the highlights of the other day, and I was doing my stats I did my stats and started looking ahead to this week in college, but I look at the end and it's 11-10. Denver, Russell Wilson scored, and I'm like just loving it. So another huge college week and not a bad pro week. Pros are just we'll talk pros tomorrow, are very schizophrenic. Jacksonville looks like a much better team than they have with Urban Meyer, who was probably, he kept saying, we play Alabama every week. I'll never forget that comment. It's like, every week we play Alabama. It's the fucking pros, Urban. What were you expecting? But they look pretty good against San Diego. I was a little pissed that Herbert played when I hear he's out. That's why you got to be very careful who you listen to. One of these shows, Herbert hurt his ribs, he's out. Well, I heard Herbert was going to play. Then the line goes down to 3.5 as if he's out. So I ended up playing the under and just barely winning it because I figure Herbert's out and Jacksonville looked good offensively. Lawrence still looks like crap, but their defense looks incredible. That Georgia guy and Sweat or Smoot, very strong defense for Jacksonville. Well, we'll get into the pros later. The Green Bay Tampa game, I had that game over. I can't figure how that was 14-12. You got to be kidding me. And I'm looking at the stats, and Brady's like 12 of 12 for, and Rodgers was 13 of 14. I'm like, where the hell's the points? So I think they just probably ran the ball more and probably turnovers. I'll watch the highlights, see what really happened, but very surprising when you get an under with those two quarterbacks. So looking at college for this week, we start off with a BYU-Utah State game. Utah State's the Z team. BYU should handle them. But it is somewhat a rivalry because BYU is in Utah. So it's Utah State, although BYU's real arch enemy is Utah. So BYU, and I'm sure they'll play Utah. That's the game you got to be very careful with. They should handle Utah State, but against Utah, very tough. Friday, you got Houston, Tulane, UTSA, Middle Tennessee State, San Diego State, Boise, UCLA, Washington, and UNLV, New Mexico. I put in my spreads right now. I've got to put in the teams. So UTSA is an A team and San Diego State's an under team. So I got to put that in. UCLA, Washington's very intriguing. My spread's UCLA -7. Here's when you put the spreads in, right? What do you think the spread is? I say UCLA should be 7 over Washington. They look pretty good. And this is where we're going to break it down. Then the real spread comes out. And then we see, is it too high or too low? If they're laying 17, that doesn't make sense because that's about right. Washington looks very good, although they're at home. UCLA, we know, can score on anybody, but they don't have the greatest defense. Washington should be able to keep the game close. You put a score down, 34-31 is my score roughly. So the 7 is what I think the spread should be. Then I do the score, which is what UCLA will score on them. Washington with Penix seems like they're scoring. The Fresno State coach seems like he scores a lot like he did last year. So this is at least a 60-point game, at least 34-31, somewhere in that neighborhood. So now we're going to see the over-under, and we're going to see the spread. And if it's too high, we go Washington. If it's right about there, we might take UCLA, but we probably go over because I don't know that I can trust UCLA to beat Washington because this game looks pretty freaking even with two strong teams playing it. So although the Washington win over Michigan State doesn't look as good now that Michigan State got blown up by Minnesota, you're going, maybe they're not that good. So that diminishes that win. But Washington looks like a good team, but we'll see. Vegas 10 over New Mexico. This is an interesting one. We just won with Vegas, right? They're a very strong offensive team. New Mexico is a very strong defensive team. Rule number 1, defense beats offense. So now what are we going to do with this game? Now I have Vegas 10 over New Mexico. Let's see what the real line is, and then let's see can we even get Utah as a dog or Utah with points or UNLV? That's what we want, but you got to be careful with Vegas against a strong defensive team like New Mexico. Pitt, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a Z team. Slovis didn't play. The third stringer did. So if Slovis is out there, he got a concussion. I saw the guy threw him down. He hit his head on the grass. He didn't think it was a big deal. He's been out for 3 weeks now. So we'll see if he plays. They'll kill Georgia Tech. If he doesn't play, there's nothing you can do. North Carolina, Virginia Tech, we got an over against an under. Now, here we go. Baylor against Oklahoma State. Tease the dog. I got Baylor -3. I got 31-30. Tease the dog. If we're lucky, we get Baylor as a home dog, then it's a better bet. If Baylor lays 7, we take Oak State. It's what the spread should be, -3. It's a 60-point game, and then it's who are you going to give me as the dog, and that's the bet. Vanilla, how you doing? Well, I love it. It just keeps going. So we look at what happened last week. That's what I've been doing, and we learn. And then we take that to this week. So what we're doing is what changed on the teams. And, like I said, I went with Georgia Southern, UNLV, and Kansas. Doesn't get any sweeter than that. So we've adapted to Kansas being this 50-point team. Quarterback looks freaking good. And they score. I mean, and then even when he throws like a little pass, the running backs just break tackles and go 50 yards for touchdown. So they're a very strong offensive team, Kansas. Wake Forest, Florida State. I got Florida State laying 7, Wake Forest. This is a live over. If this over is under 75, I'm taking it over. I got Florida State -7. If it goes much higher, it's a Wake Forest play. If you can get more than 14, they handle Clemson. And if you handle Clemson's defense, Florida State's defense is not near Clemson's. This should be a very high-scoring game. Texas, West Virginia. Now Texas off of a loss to Texas Tech. They're going to be motivated. West Virginia, okay team. Interesting game. Oklahoma, TCU. This should be a high-scoring game. At TCU, Oklahoma off of a loss. This will be very interesting. If you give me too many points, I'll take TCU because they have a very strong offense this year. They will score points. And I'm waiting to see Oklahoma. They did not look like this Clemson defense giving up 34 to Texas Tech. TCU is just as strong as Texas Tech is offensively. Look for TCU at home and emotional, but you got Oklahoma. So you don't get pissed with Oklahoma this week. You keep it in the back. Now, if they lose this game and then they're at home to whoever the weak team is, and I'm not sure there's a weak team in that conference anymore. Used to be Kansas. Then you said, well, Kansas State. Well, they just beat Oklahoma. I don't have a Z team in Big 12. I got a bunch of Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Baylor's, Texas. Texas Tech looks good. TCU looks good. Kansas State. The whole league's just like the Pac-10. They're all strong. The weak link in the Pac-10 is Arizona State, Colorado. I don't have that in the Big 12, so there's really nobody Oklahoma you can really light up against going, oh, okay, they got this easy team. They're going to have 3 or 4 losses, Oklahoma is what it looks like. Oak State's going to beat them. Baylor's going to beat them. They lose, Texas, that'll be a big game. So TCU is a very live dog here. Clemson, North Carolina State, 18 versus 18. NC State, probably we're looking a little ahead. Clemson showed their hand. You can pass on them. Mr. Hartman. Leary's very good quarterback for NC State, and they got a much better defense than Wake. I got Clemson laying 7, and I got the dog in this game. Again, I got the 18, but all of a sudden Clemson's defense is not Georgia's defense. So you got to be very careful. You got to be very careful here with, with Clemson. I don't trust the quarterback. I don't, he's okay against NC State. Now, the difference is you're going to watch NC State put pressure on him with that defensive line. He's not going to just sit back. This is where I see the upset happening. If they can pressure the quarterback, he cannot make decisions. He's got to have like wide open receivers, and then he's okay. And he likes to scramble. Look for the lot of blitzing by NC State, and they have the defensive line to do it. This is a very live dog right here. Air Force and Navy. I got Air Force laying 10. I like Air Force here. I think they're the better team. Navy got the win somehow, Saturday, but Air Force is much the better. And now the key here is they both know each other's offense because they practice against it. So Air Force will handle Navy better than whoever they just played last week. And Air Force throws it more. So Navy should handle Air Force. These games are usually low scoring because they both do the running and they both know how to defend the running because you can practice at that speed. So interesting game. Michigan, Iowa, like the dog. I got Michigan laying 7 at Iowa. They're not going to score much. Michigan, their quarterback sucks. All they have is the run, but are you going to be able to run it on Iowa? Now, Iowa, we know, has no offense. Even against Rutgers, they only scored 1 touchdown. 2 were pick sixes. So you have basically a pissed off Iowa team, right? They lost to Iowa State, and they love this. Here comes Michigan at home. Here we go. Michigan freaks out on the road. It's going to be a tough one for Michigan to win, especially they're using their backup quarterback, who they think's their better quarterback. But McNamara is much better than this McCarthy, who he's a 5-star in high school, which who gives a shit. Personally, I don't like the move Harbaugh did. I don't see McCarthy. Like, what do you pay me for? What's my biggest skill is spotting talent. We found Hartman. We found Rising. We find Van Dyke. I see McNamara from Michigan. He's okay. He looks good. I see McCartney. I go, this guy is terrible. He doesn't have good mechanics, and he wants to run too much. And you know how I love the quarterbacks that want to run instead of throw. You know how that just is ridiculous. Kansas quarterback's a good running quarterback, but he looks to throw. Jefferson on Arkansas. All these guys look to throw, and then they could run. They don't look to run. Hartman doesn't run. Van Dyke doesn't run. Rising, only if they have to. That's what you have. So this will be interesting. I can see Iowa pulling the upset very easily. It's first 1-10 will win. This will be a very low-scoring game. I'm hoping to see a 45 over/under because Michigan scores a lot, but I don't know. If I see 34, I'll go over, but I don't think we'll see 34 here. Again, I haven't looked at it yet. I'll look at it later, but I just see Michigan -7. I'm really curious what the spread will be. Probably 14, and we'll be itching to take Iowa or the under. Texas Tech, Kansas State. Kansas State beat Oklahoma. Texas beat Texas, or Texas Tech beat Texas. Very interesting game. I like the dog here. Will they both be flat after these wins? I mean, that's really the question. You give a little edge to Kansas State because they're at home and they can run the ball, so they're less apt to throw. The turnovers are, though. Martinez, the Nebraska quarterback, is their quarterback. Next year, he'll go to another college team. He's going to play 10 years in college, I think. I thought he played 5 years at Nebraska, and now he's at Kansas State. And interesting how he gets 6 years in and he won't get drafted. But that's the one. He'll turn it over, but they can run it, and that'll neutralize Texas Tech. So this will be interesting. Who's flat after the upset? So beware of that game. Mississippi, Kentucky. Love the dog in the game. Very even game. I got Mississippi laying 3. It'll probably be 7. Kentucky, a very live dog. Very good team. This is a tease the dog. Memphis, Temple. Temple's terrible. Memphis, explosive. I got them laying 21. It'll probably be 30. This is where you could play Memphis to blow out the Z team. Minnesota, Purdue. I got it 10, but I think that's short. If O'Connell's out for Purdue, their quarterback, the way Minnesota is, and they are a very strong defensive team, good quarterback, good running back, good balance, they should blow them out. Minnesota is a complete team and a sleeper. They're not Alabama. We don't know them. So if this spreads like under 10, we're taking Minnesota. Wisconsin, Illinois. Wisconsin's laying 10 after being embarrassed on TV against Illinois, who's a run and play defense. And by the way, their coach used to coach Wisconsin. This has under written all over it. 2 strong defenses to go under. They're not playing New Mexico State where they're going to score 62 because they get 4 pick sixes. So that's not going to happen here. Georgia State and the Army laying 3. Georgia State is not Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's the high-scoring, beat Nebraska. Georgia State is a passing team, and Army's played a bunch of them. They had Coastal Carolina and UTSA. I got Army -3. I think Army should be good in this one. They've had a hell of a schedule, I'll tell you, but laying the 3. So this is the difference. We bet on Army the last 5 years as dogs, and they win straight up and boom, boom, boom. And now when they're in the favorite role, it's a lot different than when you take them as a live dog. So it's just, you got to be careful with that. So Army, we'll see. Now, what I'm looking at is all these other games I'm telling you, the live dogs, the Michigan game, the Kentucky game, the Baylor, Oak State, the Wake Forest. See, so what you do is you rank them and you go, well, throw out, I don't give a shit about Georgia State Army. I'd rather have the dog in the Oak State Baylor game. That's a much better play. Or the Michigan, Iowa, if it's high enough to go under. So you're trying to get the best games. You can't bet them all, and you try to weed out the losers. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. Louisville, 14 over BC. Louisville should kill them. BC's terrible. No offense, kind of a weak defense. Louisville can score. I got 14. We'll see where the line is. Again, that's what I feel. Louisville should beat them by about 30. So let's see what the line is. James Madison, Texas State. Very interesting game here. James, what's Texas State? Do I have that? What the hell are they? James Madison just beat App State, Texas State. Didn't they play last week? Maybe not. Well, I'll get to Texas State when I go into the spreadsheet. North Texas. No, they're over. Anyway, James Madison is a very strong Division II team that jumped to Division I and just beat App State. Are they going to be flat? Every team gets flat. Every team has a big win and gets flat. I got them laying 14 to Texas State, who I think's not very good. We'll see, but they have a good quarterback, good stats, good team. So we'll see. Utah, Oregon State, good fucking game there. I got Utah -7 after what Oregon State did to USC. Ooh, if it's too many, I could see teasing the dog in Oregon State. Like I said, that Pac-10 is just freaking loaded all over the place. I mean, Washington State, Oregon State, USC, UCLA, and Utah. So you got 7, 8 strong playoff teams who get fucked because they play each other and get 2 losses. Well, you can't come into the playoff. Wait, look at the schedule we played. Are you kidding me? I mean, look at USC. They're going to play Utah. They play UCLA, and they just played Oregon State, and they're going to play another big team in the, and they beat Stanford. So, I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, Jesus, what a conference. Oh, my God. So, Utah Lane, I got them at 7. I think that'll be low. I think it'll probably be 14. But that's kind of what I see the game is. It's a 7-point game. I love Rising. I love Nolan, the Oregon State quarterback, Fenwick, very balanced team. They just showed their defense. You cannot ignore the fact they held SC to 17 points. You can't ignore it. You've got to say, fuck this team. And they blitzed him, and he had no time, and that was the key. They're going to do to Rising. The difference is Utah's got a running back, so that might make this game go under. We got to see what the over-under is. But hard to bet against Rising at home in the altitude. How flat is Oregon State after the USC game? This will be another interesting angle to the game. But let's see what the spread is. My spread's Utah laying 7. Very strong game. Eastern Michigan against Mass. I got a -14. It'll probably be in the 20s. Mass is the worst team, the Z team. Eastern Michigan, I think they're more the over team. Did they play San Jose State? Was that? No, that was Western San Jose State. Eastern. I think Eastern did okay last week. Come on. Yeah, okay. They lost to Buffalo 50-31. So they can score and they have no defense, but they're playing UMass. So you want them to score. So I'd probably lay it in the 20s against the weakest team in the country, UMass. Northern Illinois, Ball State, interesting game. I got Northern Illinois laying 10. I'll have to look more into it. The Lombardi, their quarterback, was injured. Is he coming back? Don't know. How's the backup? Got to check that out. Fresno State against UConn. This will be interesting. Hayner's out. The backup, well, I don't know if Hayner's out. He hurt his knee. So he's questionable. He's not out, which makes me think he could play. They didn't play last week. If Hayner plays, this is Lock City. I got him laying 31. If Hayner doesn't play, the backup looked pretty good against SC, led the drive, got him down to the 1-yard line at the end. So he's not bad. He was like 10 out of 11. So I think they'll be okay even with the backup, but I'm not going to lay more than 30 with the backup. But Connecticut's terrible. Fresno State, if Hayner was there, would be a lock this week if it was under 40. Kent and Ohio. Now, my Kent, finally. You played Washington, you played Oklahoma, and you played freaking Georgia. And I got to give them credit for putting up 22 on my Georgia team. Nobody does that. Arkansas didn't do it. Alabama didn't do it. Kent finds a way to put 22 up and keep the game under. I didn't know why that game was such a 62. Even though it hit 61, to make the line 62 made no sense. I couldn't believe that. That's why it was a lock, and that's why we won. Kent, 17 over Ohio. I got 17. Who is Ohio? Is Ohio any guy? Ohio got killed by Penn State, I remember. Let me take a quick look if I can find. I'm having trouble with the MAC teams. I know Central and I know Western sucks. I don't see Ohio. Here, Ohio. Miami of Ohio beat Northwestern. I don't see Ohio. Unless they played a Division II team yesterday. Kent, Eastern, Buffalo, Central. Oregon. Yeah, I don't see them. They didn't play anybody so a week ago. Yeah, we can go back to week 3. Who the fuck Ohio played? Okay. Iowa State beat Ohio 43-10. Iowa State with a pretty good defense. Not a great offense, as they showed against Baylor. So now we got Ohio against my Kent team who can light it up. Even against Georgia, I look at that as they lit it up. 22 points. I got a -17. We'll see where this line is. This could be a very strong play, Kent. We know they can score. Don't know what kind of defense they have, but holding Georgia to 39, a lot of teams wish they could hold Georgia to 39. So this would be an interesting play. This could be this week's Georgia Southern and UNLV and Kansas. Lane 17, intriguing. Kent can really score. Miami of Ohio and Buffalo. Miami of Ohio beat Northwestern and Buffalo killed, Eastern. So Buffalo, I got lane 7. We used to bet Buffalo all the time a couple years ago. They had a good quarterback. Then the coach went on. They sucked last year. This year they look better. Good offense. I got them laying 7. Interesting game. Miami of Ohio's quarterback's out, so their backup's playing, but he's played a few games, so we got some stats on it. Derek, I miss you talking about Air Force and Navy. Air Force should win. Kent might have some bruised players. Kent should beat Kent last year. That doesn't make sense. Kent should beat Kent last year. Okay, I'll get back to you, Derek. Northwestern, Penn State. The Penn State should kill them. I mean, Northwestern can't beat a Division II team and lost to a Miami of Ohio team with their backup quarterback. Penn State should kill them here. I got Penn State minus 21. I don't think that'll be enough. Probably be in the 30s, but they'll kill Northwestern. Keep in mind, Penn State's got to play Michigan. They got to play Ohio State, and they're undefeated, and they want to make the playoffs. So they do not lose at home to a Northwestern team. They'll blow them out. Iowa State, Kansas. Oh, what a game. You're going to love this line. I got Kansas at home laying 7 to Iowa State. If that comes out like that, I'll be shocked. I have circled take the dog. I am praying that Iowa State is a road favorite. Iowa State just lost to Baylor. They will be a little upset, but they're at Kansas. I don't know that I can trust Kansas laying 7. Okay, just beat Iowa State. I can't make that bet, not like I could last week about Duke. This will be a very interesting game. Pray that Iowa State's favored. Then I can take Kansas as a home dog because Iowa State doesn't score but has a good defense. If anybody's going to slow down Kansas, it's Iowa State, it's Baylor, it's Oak State. Well, I don't know about Oak State, but Baylor and Iowa State are the strong defensive team in the conference. So those are your two you got to worry about with Kansas against good defensive teams. Just like Oregon State crushed USC with the blitz, look out here. So this will be interesting. We only want Kansas as the dog here. We do not want to lay points. As good as we're making money on Kansas, this is not the time or the place to lay. Now, can they win? Absolutely. Does it matter they're at home? Absolutely not. And Iowa State with that defense, but not a big offense. So this should be a close game. If you can get Kansas as the dog, they're a good dog because Iowa State doesn't score much. But very good game. Very nice. Central and Toledo. Central can score. This will be a game that I like Central in. Toledo, I have laying 10. Toledo's the cream of the conference, them in Northern Illinois. Coming off of a loss to San Diego State, which makes no sense, but it was in San Diego. Again, the Midwest going to the West Coast is very difficult.